Welcome back to the XTS Custom Shop here in Nashville, Tennessee. Say hi, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
And say hi, Zach.
Hi, Zach.
Special guest, Zach Childs, in the house. And we've got, where we once had one board,
Yes.
there is now two.
Yes.
And what was kind of the secondary project, Lil Jon there,
Yes.
wound up sort of influencing, because you had a different plan for the big one.
I did have a different plan for the big one, but I've used these pedals for so long, and I was going to use some different pedals that I hadn't really used a whole lot. And so as I thought about it, I thought, that's a bad idea.
Why do you say that? New pedals are exciting and all those things.
They are exciting, but right after on the 26th of December, the day after Christmas, I'm flying to Vegas to go play 6 nights with this new board, and I just thought that's a dumb move to have a bunch of stuff that you don't know well, and to be using we're talking about using a different overdrive, a different different delay, different compressor. I mean, it was completely different, and so I just realized it's like, this is not a good idea. I love these pedals. I actually had duplicates of pretty much all of them except for maybe the DM3. And so, I had to buy one of these, but the rest of them I already had because I'm one of those morons that, when you find something that you really like, you feel like you have to have a backup. I know, it's a sickness.
Well, do you think that comes from like a tech background?
It does. It comes from that. It comes from having that amount of pressure on you, and feeling like you kind of rely on certain things, and you just don't want to get caught with your pants down.
Sure.
So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. That having backups for everything, because it was, that was the whole thing about being a guitar tech, was that you had to have backups and backup plans, and you had to be, because there's so much pressure on the artist to put on a show, and then you've got to keep them going.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, both of you guys have considerable tech backgrounds. Do you have any horror stories for new stuff being brought out day of and maybe not going so great? It seemed like a good idea at the time.
I don't think I do.
Okay.
I don't
I guess it's
really.
your guys' job to keep people from doing that.
Part of it, but I think there's just so much to. I think when you have new stuff, again, I think I've said this before. It's like you have to kind of get comfortable with the new stuff, and so many times you don't really have that opportunity unless there's rehearsals. And so when you're just thrown into the gig, you show up and you've got like 30 minutes to do, to get an ear mix and to kind of to do a quick run through, and that's it. And then you've got to go play 4 hours. And so it's like when you have all this stuff that you're not used to, so it's more about it's self-preservation.
Sure.
And making sure that I play music instead of futzing around with stuff for, or during the whole 4 hours. I mean, wouldn't you agree? I mean, then you're leaning over and you're like, oh, I don't like that. That setting worked fine when I was running it through a little mixer, and then all of a sudden it sounds completely different.
Well, it definitely opens you up to even tiny little things, just like the mechanics of how a pedal works or whatever. You're like, oh, I didn't know it did that. It's in some mode, or this didn't do what I was expecting, which would normally be no big deal.
Right.
But if you have between line check and the show, that's your whole introduction to a device, and you might be asking for trouble.
Exactly.
So we've got all the same pedals with a couple add-ons. So I guess we won't belabor the individual choices, since you did a good job of explaining those in that other video.
Yeah, so there'll be a little link here that if you want to go over and watch the video where we talk through all the pedals. But basically, we've got the Mirage compressor, we've got an Analogman modified tremolo, and this one is too, even though it doesn't have the sticker on the front, it's got the stamp on the side. This Mostortion was rehoused by y'all because the switch went bad. This one has not been rehoused because the switch still works, and y'all left enough room so that if it does have to be rehoused, it can at some point. But I appreciated the fact that I said, why don't we just rehouse this? And you said, why do that? If it's working, let's not mess with it. So I appreciate that. So we're leaving that alone. Then we've got the good old DM3 that's been modified to work on 9 volts instead of 12. This one's, same thing. Again, these are still really inexpensive, 120 bucks or so. And then the Echo Park.
For now. Until Ask Zach blows it up.
Oh, you never know what's going to take off and what's not. But anyway, and the Echo Park is just a great kind of do-it-all thing. The only thing is, like we mentioned the other time, it's just whether you can get along with the tap on it. I can. It doesn't bother me at all. I like it a lot. So, and it just has a really good, the tape and the analog sounds on it and everything. And then, so this rig is basically to be able to use an amp or to go direct or to do both at the same time. That was the whole point of this. And this is so I can, when I'm going out with an amp, I don't have to take 2 of them because I have a backup right here.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm going direct, then I can also run to an amp just to have some stage volume. Like the gig I'm going to go play in Vegas in late December, the vocalist likes to use a wedge, even though the rest of us are on ears, and I'm going to go direct. So instead of having guitar come through the wedge, what I'll do is they have some of those Boss Katana amplifiers that are there. And so I'll go direct for my sound, but I'll run this amp output off to that Boss Katana just so that I can have a little bit of stage volume for the singer so that he can hear it without having to have the monitors have guitar in it too.
Yeah, it'll sound like a band thing.
Yeah. And so it helps it. So yeah, this was all about having that versatility and the backup. So I can go play a gig and I don't have to bring 2 amplifiers with me because if my amp blows up, well, guess what? We can just take an XLR and we can go out of here. Or if you're just going direct only. And I love this Dream 65. It's got reverb and tremolo in it, which is nice. It's got good EQ on it. It's got a boost. I think it's just and a lot of these things try to do a lot of different things well, and this is only trying to be a deluxe. And I think it just does a good job of it. So it keeps me happy. So I really loved the way y'all put this together. I loved the flat work. What do you call this that you put on top?
We call them lamb tops.
Lamb tops. It almost sounds like lamb chops.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
It's the board covering that never ends.
Yeah. So it just looks really nice. And I love this signal flow thing right here. This is awesome.
Yeah, I told Zach, I said, I don't mind telling you, but now I'm going to tell 20,000 other people that it seems like that's for you, but really it's for us when you call later and you're like, what did we do on that again? And yeah. I'm like, I don't remember.
So I guess we ought to talk about some of the special features here because, I mean, really the big thing is, of course, what's different from this, which is just a plain, simple, pedal board. This has some other features on it. So where should we start? Like signal flow or the junction box?
Eric, why don't you talk us through the junction box because that'll cover kind of both the gags.
Yeah. Well, really, the signal chain is the same as this one, pretty much. The tuner and compressor are swapped. Doesn't really matter though. This is up here, so you can plug in and tuner down here because who likes a sideways tuner? Nobody prefers it. But sometimes you do it because you
gotta.
We didn't have to here. So really the only trick thing is the box here. There's an insert point between the Mostortion and the delay to insert a volume pedal, or really anything.
Yeah, it could be anything. Could add another dirt box for a gag effect.
You could put this whole other board in there, and then would that be twice as much or
half as much? It might be. I don't know if you divide by 2.
Would that be a 2 times 2 or 2 with a little 2 up to the right of it?
Because that's one of the few things that you get a lot of volume pedals are really great for for obviously doing swells and stuff like that. And there's times where you're just like, I really need a volume pedal for this, and you really want it to be after your drives, so that you still have your level of drive and compression and things going on, and you're just able to, swell it in, and of course you want to have your delays after it, so that so that things trail off.
Sure.
But that's kind of the one thing that where you would take this and you wish that okay, well, I've got to bring a volume pedal, and so then I end up running it in front of it, which is not a bad deal, but it just ends up as you back it off. Of course, you lose drive if you have that on.
For sure. And so that gets us. And then what do we got going on here to service the amp?
And then there's just a split between these two.
So the Echo Park.
Feed two lines. One can go out to an amp, and then the other can feed the amp over here.
Yes, the pretend amp.
The pretend amp.
Which drives the canvas from Walrus so that you have XLR outs on this side. And then the cool thing about the way that Eric has set this up, if there's no volume, if you don't need one, you just pull those and that just normals through. Yeah. So it can regress, which I think is an important feature because you never know what's going to happen. And anytime you have the option to make a rig do both and, I think is probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's nice to not have to put a cable there to get signal to go across there.
For sure.
And this canvas is kind of, I was just going to put a regular old JDI radial, but this canvas is stereo if you need that, if they want two sources. And it's a line driver, which means it doesn't take the signal down and then they have to re-up it back at the board.
Right, doesn't make it mic level.
Right. So, of course, that can throw people off, which it has a DI or line driver, option. So you can take it down to DI, mic level if you want.
Oh, and then a pad on top of that. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, and then it has the ground lift on there because when running an amp and direct, you're probably going to have to use the ground lift.
I would think so. Yeah. Always good to have it just in case. So, I mean, that's everything on top of the board. What are we doing for power?
Well, we're using the good old CS6, and this is one I've had for a while. It's got a little, a
little road wear.
A little road wear, and it's got a piece of tape, over the little dip switches.
That's actually a non-trivial trick for those who use these. It's pretty rare. In fact, I know of no instance where one got accidentally flipped.
I do know of an instance.
You do. Well, then it saves that. I think more common somebody gets under there and is like, something's not working. I'm going to start flicking switches. And it rarely does that make things better.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. And again, y'all, labeled these as always. And so we had to, because this has 6 outputs and we've got 7 devices that need power, we had to split one. So
the compressor.
It looks like the compressor and the Mostortion are off the same, which is fine. You don't need to have isolated power for those because they're not going to create noise problems. But you absolutely have to have like the Echo Park and the Dream 65.
And probably the trim and the DM2 just to be safe, since they've got clocky things.
Definitely that one.
Definitely the TR2. If you share that one, you will often hear a sound.
And we don't want that.
Nope. Not unless you're after that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Not unless you want that.
Not unless you want that. You always got to leave that door open these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's another a bigger brother that has kind of the same soul as the first one, but a few more capabilities for when you need them, and you can take the little one when you don't.
Little John,
Big John. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, thanks so much, dude, for letting us do this for you. We really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I love just being able to finally have this board that can kind of do everything for me and saves me from having to run like another amp or like these off to the side, and just being able to put this in one case and be able to fly with it or go out on the road with it. That's just a huge thing. And it just, it looks amazing. I need to thank my Patreon people and just all the people that support me, and hope you all have a great new year. Thanks. Bye-bye.